How many of you are personally happy? Excellent. Good. How many of you are concerned and less happy about the state of the world? Oh, let the record reflect. It was the same number pretty much. Disconnect between your personal lives and your personal happiness and the political. Now, I'm going to be talking about gender, war, and peace. Not the Tolstoy version, we'll be here for 100 years. I'm going to talk about the feminist one. Yes, the feminist one. I am one, I'm a big one, I wear leather pants. And I love it. Not necessarily the leather pants, but the whole concept of feminism. I was in Bosnia for 9 years as the head of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And in that time, I learned many, many things, but one of the most important lessons I learned was about structure, institution, and individuals. Peacekeepers were sexually exploiting women who were trafficked into Bosnia, specifically for that purpose. And the United Nations said nothing, did nothing. And as head of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, I was part of that system. But people in that system preferred to protect the institution over the rights of the individual. They made a conscious choice to do that. I had that choice too, but I'm a feminist, so guess what I chose? And the rest, as they say, is history. But I come from a long line of people who've made those sorts of decisions where it seemed to us that there was no decision to make. In 1915, feminist activist suffragette Jane Addams brought, without a cell phone, without a vote, she got 1,300 women to The Hague to protest the First World War and to make known its causes. And what did they come up with? Inequalities between peoples and between nations, and a way of thinking that was military. So thinking of militarism as a way of protecting those inequalities between people and states. Where do we come to? The suffragettes metamorphosed into feminists. I'm a feminist. My curiosity took me to many war zones. I've been to Argentina in the Dirty War, and yes, I was very young then, please note, because that was 1978. I've been to Nicaragua and watched the Revolutionary War. I've been to the Balkans, I've been to Ukraine, and many other places. And it has taught me enormously about how wars happen. And it's about political economy. The political economy of peace, which if not done on the basis of equality, could lead to war. It's about power. Who has it, how they use it, and it's highly gendered, and it's infiltrated by the other identities we have, race, color, religion. And if it goes wrong, and if we are used to other people, if the discriminations are used to prevent society growing, then from those different parts of society, from our family to our education system, to our employment, to our governance structures, it goes wrong. And it's characterized by violence, and violence breeds violence, so you move from the social structure into the political international structure, and you end up with violent conflict. But the other side is that the vast majority of people don't want it. How very unsurprising. People do not want violent conflict and war. 10 days ago, I was with a friend of mine, a Syrian woman who was here to try and influence the peace process. And she said to me she'd been meeting with many people from the opposition, from the government party, from all sides and none, religious and none. And they were all saying the same thing. They wanted to put down their guns and go home. But the peace process failed. In the meantime, what is she doing? She and the women who are trying to influence that, they're still organizing intelligently. They're still trying to broker local peace process. They're still trying to get their voices and the voices of ordinary people into that peace process so that it can work. And meanwhile, back in another conflict, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we have a section, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, we have a section there headed by a woman called Annie, and she has a bakery. And in that bakery, women come from all the surrounding areas and villages to bake their bread. And as they're baking their bread, so they are talking about how to get the guns out of the community, how to get women into decision-making, and now how to engage and support the men who want to engage with them to stop violence. These are the inheritors of that long tradition of what is essentially a feminist analysis. Equality, non-violence. Those are the two major things underpinned by the need to address militarized security. But what happens? Difference. We're very good at difference. Now, we feminists, my Syrian friend, Annie, me, we're all very, very different. We're from all backgrounds, we're all shapes, colors, sizes, religions, and none. But we celebrate that diversity. We see diversity is our strength. And with that strength, we can see how we can make a difference. That's the beauty of the human species. We are diverse, we are different, and that's what makes us potentially so brilliant. But instead, difference can be used to other, to make us afraid of those people who are not quite like us. And right now, we're afraid of asylum seekers, we're afraid of migrants, we're afraid of Muslims. And when we're afraid, we go quiet because we expect someone to take care of it. And that something becomes militarized security. And militarized security needs a particular type of masculine identity. It builds and needs and elevates a violent masculinity. It builds and needs women who will support that violent masculinity. I saw it in Ukraine. There were footages of the soldiers going off to the front, being waved off, these great men in uniforms, being waved off by women waving flags, handing flowers. 100 years since the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom tried to stop that. The image is the same. And not only is that image the same, now we have an additional layer. Militarized security is bringing women into it as actors, as fighters. And I am told that as a feminist, I'm supposed to enjoy that, celebrate it. But equality was supposed to lead to an end to violence, not for us to come in and perpetrate violence as well. That was not it. And what happens when you have militarized security? What do you need? In 1915, they said, if we continue with this mentality that militarization is the solution to security, we're going to have an exponential growth in weapons. And we do. You may not know, because there's so many noughts involved, but our governments collectively spend 1.5 trillion more or less each year on weapons, defense for us. Do you know what we could do with that? We could end extreme poverty, end hunger, educate every single child in the world. We could address climate change. We could address gender inequalities. There are so many things we could do with that. And if you add in the 7.6 trillion sitting in offshore accounts in tax havens, well, the money is there. We could do this, but we haven't. So what do we do? It is not at all surprising that in 1915, our wonderful women could not bring an end to the First World War. They just say they didn't even have a vote, but we do. And not only that, one of the things they were pushing for was to create a multilateral system in which war would be eliminated, where you would discuss political solutions to intransigent problems and not go and kill each other. And in 1945, that dream was realized when the United Nations was established. And it was established with the objective of saving future generations from the scourge of war. And the preamble starts with, we, the people, are the member states of the United Nations. Not we, the governments, not we, the 1% elite. We, the people, that's you and that's me. And not only that, but there has been created a body of international law, which as a lawyer, I just adore. Because it guarantees equality, it guarantees solidarity between states, it guarantees for women, peace and security that there will be inclusive processes which will lead to peace. So it's there. But still, it's not working. And one of the reasons it's not working is that we still focus on a diametrically opposed warring factions. It's binary. We, the people, are not in there. The people of Syria are not in those negotiations, even though they want peace. The system is not working. And even if we could squash and stop that horrific war in Syria, there are other wars going on. And unless we rethink, there will be more. Inevitably, there will be more. What we need is to look at the root causes, the global root causes of conflict and address them. It's the political economy of war and of peace. And because it's the political economy of war and peace and global, it involves all of us. And this is where I can hear saying, oh no, this is too big. How do I deal with this? Go back to my first question, are you personally happy? I'll bet that most of you said you were personally happy because you have material sufficiency to live. You're not in need, you're not in want, you're not in fear. But also, you have in your lives, I would bet, friendship, love, decency, solidarity, support, empathy, values that are intrinsic to the human condition when it is we are not othering people. These are the ones that we can work with. I'll give you two challenges. One, think of how you could live in a non-violent way. Embrace non-violence as part of your everyday life. Number one. Number two, challenge your gendered assumptions. Because if you challenge your gendered assumptions, we wouldn't be saying, sort of, with regard to domestic violence, for example, that it's a women's issue. No, it's not. It's all our issues. We must engage with men to do that. Conscription issues. Why does only men get conscripted in our formulation of militarized security? So those things we need to address and look at. But more importantly, if you think of what I was saying about the personal to the political, how do you move it? If you've got those values in your personal life, how do we somehow push it into the public domain? It moves from you to the school board, to the municipality, to the canton, to the government, to the multilateral system. Sounds easy, but it takes work. Because it means you have consciously got to look up and pay attention to the work that you do and how that links. All of us come to the table with a little bunch of jigsaw pieces. And the puzzle we need to put together is how we can all live together in peace and end the constant conflagrations which keep happening again and again and again. And we can. Because if you build your little piece of the jigsaw puzzle and you look consciously to the person who is doing something similar but different, someone who's expert in an area you're not expert in, but who is wanting to push the agenda towards a peaceful coexistence, you look and you put those pieces together, and we can build that jigsaw puzzle and that picture which makes the fundamental change. Now, just in closing, I want to ask you, in 5, 10, 15 years' time, when your children turn to you and say, in that terrible time when it looked as if the world would implode, what did you do? And you'll be able to look at them and you say, I stood up for humanity so you could have yours. That time is now. Thank you.